A script that sat on a shelf for 10 years. A creative team that was told their opinions were not welcome. A location change for filming that took them from Australia to South Africa. The fifth entry in the Tremors franchise did not have a smooth, peaceful journey to the screen, but it did give us the chance to watch survivalist Burt Gummer fight graboids again, and that's something to celebrate. So join us today as we find out what happened to Tremors 5: Bloodlines. Stampede Entertainment was formed by S.S. Wilson, Brent Maddock, Nancy Roberts, and Ron Underwood in the early 90s. You may recognize this team as the same one behind the classic monster movie Tremors, which happened to be a Universal release. And when Universal decided they wanted direct-to-video Tremors sequels, as well as a TV show, they turned to Stampede to provide them. As the new century began, Universal was keeping Stampede quite busy. Tremors 3 released in 2001, we received 13 episodes of the TV series in 2003, and Tremors 4 released in 2004. Universal was feeling so good about their series that they had Stampede start developing Tremors 5 while they were still working on the fourth. Based on a story that they had crafted with Roberts, Wilson and Maddock were hard at work on a script. There was even talk that this one might have a bigger budget and maybe even get a theatrical release, just like the original film. The first Tremors told the story of subterranean prehistoric creatures called graboids attacking the isolated town of Perfection, Nevada. Tremors 2 followed some surviving characters, including survivalist Burt Gummer agreeing to deal with a graboid problem in another location. The original idea was to set the sequel in Australia, but it ended up being changed to Mexico. But the idea for Australia kept percolating, so for Tremors 5, Stampede decided to circle back to the Australia idea, sending Burt on a monster hunt in the outback. Each sequel added something new to the graboid life cycle. The franchise establishes that if graboids are around long enough, they will change. First up are Shriekers, these two-legged heat-seeking creatures that act like velociraptors. Given enough time, Shriekers will then change into Ass Blasters. These are also two-legged creatures, but they have the ability to mix flammable chemicals in their rear ends, blasting themselves into the air. Ass Blasters then lay graboid eggs, which leads to baby graboids, as seen in Tremors 4. Unfortunately, the franchise hit a roadblock. Despite decent ratings, the TV show was canceled after just one season. Universal released Tremors 4 with almost zero promotion at a time when the DVD market was crumbling. No surprise, it was a financial disappointment, which made them put a halt on Tremors 5, and so began a long waiting period. Fans knew Tremors 5 had been in the works, and they knew Wilson and Maddock had written a script, but Universal wasn't interested in moving forward with it in its current state. As years went by, the chances of getting a sequel looked less and less likely, but Stampede tried to keep hope alive. Every time there was a regime change at Universal, there was a chance the new executives might greenlight more Tremors. Interest would spike only for it to die down again. Stampede tried to make a deal to have an independent producer raise the budget, but talks with the studio fell apart. The sequel appeared to be doomed. Then the situation took an unexpected turn. Stampede was smart enough to put the right of first refusal in their Tremors 5 contract, meaning that if Universal wanted to make a fifth Tremors, they had to offer it to Stampede first. If Stampede declined to be involved, they could take it to someone else. Unfortunately, that clause was only in effect until 2014. And wouldn't you know it, the moment those first refusal rights lapsed, Universal was ready to make another Tremors, without Stampede's involvement.
They are some sneaky bastards.
As Wilson told One Heat Minute, when Stampede heard that Tremors 5 got the green light, Nancy asked Universal whether they wanted Brent or I to direct. They told her neither of us were going to direct, or even be remotely involved in the film. We were floored. It didn't make creative sense, and it didn't make financial sense. The story they gave us at the time was that they needed a team that did low-budget movies. But the sequels we made were all low-budget films. That clearly wasn't the reason, and we were never able to find out what the real reason was. Universal said that they could give the Stampede team executive producer credits, but they'd have little say in any creative decisions. With those terms, they chose not to put their names on the movie at all. While previous entries were all directed by either Wilson, Maddock, or Underwood, Stampede's lack of involvement meant going with someone completely new to the series. Universal chose Don Michael Paul, a go-to director for direct-to-video action movies and creature features. Since the script had been written way back in 2004, it was in serious need of revisions. And with South Africa being a top destination for low-budget productions, the setting needed to be changed from Australia to South Africa. Thankfully, they brought in someone who had previous Tremors experience to handle the rewrites, John Welpley, who had worked on the script for Tremors 3. Welpley changed things up, but the finished script for Tremors 5 was still close enough to what Wilson, Maddock, and Roberts had written that they all retained credit. But they still didn't want to be associated with the film, so they opted for pseudonyms: Woodrow Truesmith, M.A. Deuce, and C.J. Streber. The basic story of Tremors 5 remains the same. Ass blasters and graboids have shown up in a new country, now South Africa instead of Australia. Burt Gummer is recruited to handle the problem, but when he arrives for the hunt, he finds that he has been provided with insufficient weapons. And his employers, who haven't been completely honest with him, want him to capture an ass blaster alive. With Burt as the lead, it meant they needed to acquire actor Michael Gross, who'd become a staple for the franchise. But after all this time, would he even agree to return? He did, but he admitted to Famous Monsters of Filmland that it was an awkward situation. I felt there had been a divorce in the family, and I was the child in the middle. Stampede had the will and the passion, but they did not own the property. So it was either sit out this dance, and they'll reinvent the franchise without Burt, or here's a chance to do Burt again. Gross then found himself in the position of trying to protect the franchise. He said, "Because we had a different director who hadn't done this before, there were certain things we would disagree on." I'd say, Burt can't say that, because it's not factually true. So there's a real balancing act without the original writers there to ultimately say, no, that can't be done. Welpley's rewrite changed the supporting cast. He removed a love interest for Burt and instead gave him a sidekick named Travis B. Welker. Eventually, it's revealed that Welker is Burt's long-lost son, the result of a one-night stand back in the 70s. Scream's Jamie Kennedy was cast as Travis, and even though his constant quips can get irritating, his dynamic with Burt can be fun. Also removed were the baby graboids, replaced by a strange new evolutionary twist. Remember the tentacles that the graboids used to pull things into their mouths? Well, now they can detach and go hunting for prey on their own. The tentacles are basically just graboid tongues, so it's weird to see them become separate creatures. But the graboids and ass blasters in this movie are very different. They've been redesigned from the ground up, and these changes don't go over well with most fans. The ass blasters are over-designed and look nothing like they did before. The graboids, said to be larger and more dangerous than the others that we've seen, are presented in an over-the-top way, always launching themselves out of the ground and catching air. It's all so stupid. The changes are unnecessary, and it's not likely that the original Tremors would have endured if these were the graboids we'd gotten. But it's part of how Universal wanted to make this sequel different.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our Joe Blow channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Of course, the folks at Stampede weren't too pleased with all this. Universal invited S.S. Wilson to a private screening of the finished film. His reaction was one of shock and horror. I couldn't have been more horrified. By halfway through, it was clear that it wasn't anything we would want to do. I kept hoping it would get better, but it just got steadily worse. There was just a whole list of things that I felt were wrong with it. It's got some of the worst monster movie cliches, the types of things we laugh at as kids. There were terrible homages to Jurassic Park. It's quite a long list. After seeing the results of the fifth film, there's no doubt that the Stampede team absolutely should have been involved with the making of Tremors 5. They are what makes this series what it is. The style and tone of the movies and the TV show were a reflection of their sensibilities. That is a big part of why the fans have loved the franchise so much. Tremors 5 is still tied to them, albeit in a very revised version of their words. But it's different from what a Stampede film would have felt like. Without their guidance, so many questionable decisions were made. The new versions of the monsters are underwhelming. Bert is unusually unpleasant, and it feels darker and rougher than its predecessors, almost to an off-putting degree. But I will admit, it's always fun to watch Michael Gross battling these monsters. And it finally closed the Tremors 5 chapter of the franchise. After over a decade of waiting, Tremors 5 Bloodlines was given a physical media and streaming release, and proved to be a success. Fans were glad to see the franchise return after so many years. Its success paved the way for 2 more sequels that were made without the involvement of Stampede. Michael Gross came back and continued fighting graboids, shriekers, and ass blasters. More questionable decisions were made, but there was still some fun to be had. And the silver lining here is that, as of 2024, the US copyright to Tremors is back in the hands of Stampede Entertainment. Welcome home. Perfection has missed you.